Yes, everyone, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Joined by Johnny and Sam here. No Dave tonight. He is celebrating his sister's birthday, and he's going to have a needed day off from all the hectic action. And people are getting restless with the transfer news. People are getting impatient. Maybe some people feel like they've waited long enough for transfer news and things to happen. And Dave is going to be off celebrating, taking his mind off of things with the sister's birthday. But we have a lovely panel. We're continuing these Thursday panels, so do thank Johnny as well as Sam for being very consistent. They've shown up to, I think, 3 or 4 now in a row. We're getting this to become a regular show throughout the season. And I'm looking forward to plenty more discussions. And we're going to be talking tonight about plenty of things such as Ange Postecoglou's frustration during the first half water break. We'll be talking about Brennan Johnson yet again, one of Dave and I's favorite subjects. James Maddison is going to be questioned again, and also some other brilliant questions that we have lined up for you all. Good to see you in the chat this evening, everyone. If you can for us, smash the like button if you're already in here. And as well, do get in your comments throughout the stream. We'll try our best to put them up there, especially if you wanted to stop the show at any point. We'll definitely try to incorporate any of your comments and any of your questions. And also, we have saved up the members' questions towards the end of the show as well. A great perk for all of you lovely people. But let's go to the panel, see how they're doing this evening. I'm going to go to my person right next to me first, then we'll go to the main man, Johnny, down below. But Sam, how are you this evening, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Jack. Good to see you again, Johnny. I'm happy and excited for another Spurs chat. As I said to you in the back room, I've got to focus on packing after this, which I'm not too excited about, but I am excited to get out. Although my fair skin in the 40-degree Cyprus heat, not always the best combination. So might have to have my camera up in the next stream.
Well, I bet you probably still have better, skin kind of genes than I do. I think I'm usually just burn only, and then eventually I'm just hopeful that it can turn into a tan, and it's usually more out of hope than it is actually out of any sort of, expectation. Johnny, how are you? How's the skin doing? Are you getting tan this
No,
summer?
the skin is good in tropical London. Global warming has finally turned up, and everyone's happy. Yeah, I mean, look, we're tapping our fingers, tapping our feet, waiting for something to happen. Life as a Spurs fan, huh?
Yeah, well,
Who'd want to swap for City or a club that buys players and wins shit?
Yeah.
No, not us, not us.
Too much action. Too much
Yeah,
action. Too
like
much
listen, like
entertainment.
the pain's great. I mean, we're only in it for the pain.
Exactly that. Well, I have heard though that it's been a very mild summer for you guys. So you guys have been all over the place from complaining about it being too cold. Now it's all of a sudden hot again, and being very tropical. I'm sorry it hasn't been consistent for you guys.
Well, just as I bought a dinghy, the sun came out. So, if I get stranded in the winter, I will be fine. But no, the weather's been pretty poor. I mean, summer turn up in sort of beginning of August, end of July. It was a bit disappointing. But hey ho, we'll probably have an Indian summer. Are you allowed to say that? Yeah, an Indian summer. And we'll have lovely weather all the way through to October. And going to see Spurs. That's the one thing I always remember when you go to your first game, the first game at the Lane or now the new Tottenham Stadium, when the sun's out in August, and how that changes, and then having to put on about 10 layers to keep warm as the season progresses. Yeah, no, it signifies that the season's about to start, and it's exciting. Whether it will remain exciting is another matter.
Well, the weather seems to be relatively interesting to you guys, but the summer transfer window maybe less so by the looks of things. We're going to get to the chat here, though, see what people have to say. I imagine there are already some frustrated Spurs fans with the lack of noise that we've been seeing throughout this window. And in fact, the only news that's really been happening is more just players that Spurs apparently aren't interested in than players that we actually are interested in, aka Conor Gallagher going to Atletico Madrid. Killian Kenny, good to see you in the house this evening. We definitely try to never stop. We're going to be putting out a stream today for you. Then also I'm going to have a pre-record lined up for you guys tomorrow. And then Saturday, we're waking up nice and early again for the Bayern Munich friendly. Sam DaCosta, he's in the house and also putting in his comments as well. And we're going to get his thoughts on the evening. PH family, pick up lads, looking forward to the stream. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Family. Shem Tan saying, hey, Jack and Dave, hope you and the panel are doing good today. The window has me totally disappointed as well as disillusioned. Shem, I think that video that Dave and I put a while back about sort of the frustration that Spurs fans are having, I think I show that I'm going to try to hold on to hope and try to hold on to my patience, but I don't necessarily blame a lot of fans for getting really disgruntled, getting frustrated, and just starting to lose hope themselves with, all the expectations that you might have had, going into the summer transfer window. And that's kind of the case usually with Spurs is we go in with high hopes, and then all of a sudden towards the end, we start to doubt it all and start to question it all and become very, very concerned about whether we even are going to be improving the team at all. And Shem, I don't blame you for being in that sort of position and really appreciate your support as a member. Inakoma saying, morning all from cold Melbourne. Well, we know that it is supposed to be cold for you guys. You guys are experiencing the opposite weather for us at the moment. You're in the middle of the winter in Acoma, and really appreciate your support as a member as well, alongside Mathis and Edwards. Good evening, Jack. Just as the stream starts, some much needed thunder and rain around my area. I'm guessing Matheson is in the London area because, Sam, you were just reporting that, right? Some kind of stormy tropical weather.
Yeah, that's why you might see a few beads of sweat dripping down my forehead, because you never know how to dress in a London summer. It could be 25 degrees, which doesn't seem hot to people who are living in countries where, it's getting to like 40 degrees. But in the city, 25 to sort of 28 degrees, we're roasting. And and then it starts raining, and you're just like, how do I prepare for that?
Yeah. No, I don't miss that about New York whatsoever. In New York, it would be about, like you're saying, close to something like 40 degrees. It can get up to, or it can be consistently like 30 to 35 centigrade, and humidity in like the high 80s, 90s. And then, by the end of the day, when you're expecting it to start cooling down, then all of a sudden the thunder and the tropical storms come through, and then you can't even open your windows to try to cool the apartment or cool the flat. It's just not easy. It's just not easy. So Matheson, hang in there, sir. Hang in there. And also hang in the transfer window. Daniel Borden, good to see you. MV Joker Davis, Edward, the one and only. Now with Palace new signing, will we see the Eze deal get done? Well, we're about to talk about Pedro Neto in just a moment, Edward, because that seems to be the player that Spurs could be pushing towards a bit more than maybe Eze. But I know that Johnny always has his opinions as well as his kind of insights on what Spurs could be doing. Georgie Hill, good to see you. Big up, lads, and all on the panel. Hope you're keeping well. Confidence or not, Matters has been poor since November. This needs to be a meritocracy, and if he isn't up to standard, he should be dropped. I wonder if some of the panel here might be nodding their heads to what Georgie Hill is saying there, as am I. And also really appreciate your support as well, George, for us for such a long time you've been with us. Terry Betts, good to see you. We also have DeFarsher in here too. Spurs GC TV, thank you for your support as a member. Ricardo as well, thank you for your support. Liston Heinz, good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Darren Kilbane saying this is a joke with the window. 2 weeks to go to start of the season on a little phone, no striker, no cover for VDV, but for Levy, more importantly, we have a hotel being built to fill his pockets. It looks like Amanda Staveley could be coming in to actually be spending the money, and that could be the transfer that Spurs might be getting. Darren Kilbane, not a player, but a new investor. Drew Zill is in the house. Big up everyone in the chat. Hope are well. Great panel as always. Looking forward to listening while at work. Drew Zilla, would love to have you on one of these panels yourself one day. I know busy with work and whatnot, and I think you're also kind of on a similar time zone to me in the USA. So one day we'd like to have you on. Big up to Mary W. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also have Lazy 8 joining us. Did Palace sign someone? I guess they must have. Palace have signed Ismail Assar, says K32, and that would be an indication that.
It's interesting signing. Interesting signing that, because this is the kid that promised so much at Watford. We're talking about the same Ismail Assar from Watford, are we?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
And then he went to Marseille, and now he's come all the way back.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this guy was going all the way. I got to be honest with you, and it just didn't happen. Watford got relegated, lost his way. Could be a good signing there. Anyone tell us how much he paid? How much they paid for them? Obviously, they're not going to disclose fully, but I would have thought they got a good deal. Because
one of those random 20 million euro transfers that you kind of just forget about. It's like it's a classic sort of staple on 15 million, 20 million. But the fact that he plays a wing position would suggest, right, that Eze could be out the door. Elise's already out the door. No,
he's an Elise replacement. He's definitely an Elise, I would say, replacement. They have got, Palace did bring a couple of players in potentially to replace Eze if he left. So we'll see. But that's definitely an Elise swap.
I know they brought in also as well that guy Daichi Kamada, who Spurs were interested in a few years ago when we still had Antonio Conte, and he's former Oliver Glasner player. So Palace, by the looks of things, are preparing for potential outgoings, right, with some of these signings that they are bringing in, trying to back Glasner as best they can. But we do have a couple of questions lined up for tonight. If you guys would like to stop the show at any point, you are welcome to throw in your questions in as a super chat, or if you have a strong opinion about any of the things that we put up on screen for you guys, you're certainly welcome to get involved. But we're going to get this show on the road, and anybody that is joining now, like I said, Dave, he's just off celebrating his sister's birthday, and we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll be back for the friendly on Saturday against Bayern Munich, a big one, the litmus test, as people have been saying about this preseason thus far. But let's get the questions up on screen for everybody, and we are going to start with at least some of the transfer news that we have available to us, and it's about Pedro Neto. And Johnny, I'm going to go to you first on this because I know you have probably a strong opinion maybe about the player.
Yeah.
You also might have some insight as to whether this is something we can actually potentially have some legs on. Pedro Neto has been touted as one of the best possible wingers Spurs would sign this summer, and that rumor seems to be gathering some legs. Do you think Spurs actually want Neto, Johnny? And does he suit Ange Postecoglou's system for you? Are there any kind of reservations you might have about this?
I mean, listen, we do need another winger. We've only got about 14. As I joke, we've got more wingers than Nando's. I just look, I think we saw in the home game when Pedro Neto, Yao Gomez won the ball from our corner, passed it to Neto. Neto ran the entire length of the pitch, still managed to find the pass, the accurate pass, and there was Yao Gomez who'd won the ball in our box, running on unopposed, past Basuma and a couple of others to whack the ball in the net. A fit Neto is a top player. I don't think there's any doubt in any fan's mind that is the case. The issue is, Spurs are riddled with players that are injured. It's just over and over again. Now, if you were saying to me, we were buying the player and we were only playing 20 million and we were paying pay as you play, if you get in the Champions League, if you do this, I'm okay with that, right? If he hits his targets, I'm okay. Look, suppose I'm going to spend 60 million on him as a flat smash down the cash, right? So it's going to be player plus cash equals Neto. Trying to do a deal where Spurs agree on the value of our player and the value of someone like Neto is probably why, if it's going to get done, it's taken such a long time in the first place. I think he scored, 4 goals, was it, last season? I don't think it was much more than that. He hardly played. His goal return's not good enough. But he's exactly what Ange wants. He wants that player with blistering pace, get to the byline and put the ball in. He's the type of guy who will go past the player. He will take the player on, not check back like so many of our wingers we currently have. We want a player that's going to draw the foul. I think if it's going to happen, it will be player plus cash. And I don't see hardly any big deals getting done, to be honest with you, right now. FFP and PSR has jammed up the market big time. There's going to be investigations, no doubt, between Aston Villa and Chelsea deals that were being done where they've concocted the prices. The problem is, try proving player X is not worth that amount. Oh, you don't think he's worth that? We thought he was worth 40 million. Right. Really? But he's only a youth player. Oh, yeah, but he's a really good youth player. You try proving it. I don't think you can. But in general, I think it's going to take a big move away. I don't know, like a Kevin De Bruyne to Saudi, which has been touted and then denied, or say, what's his name, from Man United to PSG. Midfielder. My brain's just gone dead.
Bruno Fernandes could be leaving.
Yeah, Bruno. Yeah, sorry, I just had a brain lapse there.
I was going to say, who's a good like midfielder at Man United?
I think Man United currently have about 8 players that they want to get rid of, right? There's a queue of players they want to get rid of. So, You know, would they, like, for example, say Man United like a player? You know, what are they going to do? Their likelihood is they'll try and offer 1, 2, 3 different players to try and bring that price down so they go within the PSR and FFP. I think it needs to be addressed, the limit, because the limit of spend is so minuscule that just one transfer can almost put you over the limit. Listen, we don't want to see what happened at Bordeaux. You know, when, you know, one of the biggest teams in France has gone completely tits up. We don't want to see that in this country. We see the smaller teams going. You know, any team in a community is massive. I mean, Bordeaux, massive wine region. It's the heart and center of, you know, of the community. And, you know, we don't want to see that here. But at the same time, we just need to get sensible about how we control the spend, but at the same time, make it realistic. I don't know if we do something like they do in the States, where you pay like a luxury tax if you go over your budget. Do they do something like that, don't they?
Yeah, well, in a sense, what's happened is a lot of American owners have actually taken over some of those French clubs and have run them into the ground because they've actually gone for the very kind of profit-based approach to it. And in football, it is a losing money game in most cases. You have to spend a lot of money to get the club, and then you usually have to bring in a lot of players. A lot of them might not work out, especially if you're not doing your recruitment correctly. You know, we have that with Steve Hitchen and plenty of people in the past. And most of the time, owning a football club is a losing business. But Americans try to find that way, at least in our case over here, we do try to find that way to make it a profit in some sort of regard, but it ends up being a very, very difficult task. And I think that's what's happened in the case of Bordeaux and other clubs. Levy, though, is what makes Levy different, though, from the American owners in your eyes?
No, it's different. I just think that, you know, like, say, for example, if you overspend. So say, for example, you overspend by £30 million, you have to pay a 50% levy on top of that, like a luxury tax that has to go to, say, for example, not to the Premier League, right, or anything. It goes to grassroots football. It goes into a fund which is run by an independent, and that money goes into building facilities for kids to play football, grassroots football. Because let's be honest, right, none of them, they talk the game, right, but, you know, pitches are closing. You know, if the money went down to grassroots football, then I think it'd be a good idea. But something needs to change, because right now it's stuck, and they had good intentions, but you know, look at the January transfer window. Nothing happened. We were the most active. Tottenham Hotspur were the most active club in the transfer window. When have you ever said that? Let's be serious. So listen, Neto, fit, great player, very good for Spurs. But the main worry is, you know, how many games is he actually going to play? Yeah. And, you know, is he worth that money? I would say no. If we were offering Skip and 20 million, no problem, because, you know, Skip's homegrown. But that's about it.
What about you, Sam? I mean, are you a Pedro Neto fan? And do you think that this is a realistic transfer for Spurs this summer? Johnny seemed to think that it could be a possibility, but it's definitely not certain in any sort of regard for a lot of reasons. What do you make of this Pedro Neto rumor?
I think it's definitely an exciting kind of rumor. He's definitely a bums off seats player.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen him a lot for Wolves. He takes the ball well. Like Johnny was saying, the goal he scored against us, admittedly, it was pretty shocking defending from Basuma and from Emerson, if I remember correctly. Emerson just showed him inside, and then Basuma just let him walk past. But I am also kind of inclined to go the same way as Johnny. Yes, he's an exciting player, but you know, he is just so injury prone. And as Johnny said, we've got a lot of players that have been injury prone, and especially like players coming in like Maddison. We definitely have some problems in the injury regard. I have some stats of Neto's minutes for Wolves. He has had roughly, the available minutes to him were roughly like 10,212 minutes. And he's only managed to play around 6,440. over 5 years.
Wow.
So that's pretty damning, right? I mean,
it's a good spread too. Yeah.
You're going to sign a player that might only play a handful of games each season, especially with the kind of demands that we will put on our players, especially with the kind of football that we play, but also the competitions that we're in. Wolves, that I can really remember, they've never really gone that far in any of the domestic cups. They've had one European campaign in recent history. So it's going to be something that he himself would have never really experienced. We don't know if his body would be able to take that, and the sort of signs point to no. I'll also compare him. Johnny was saying about his goal output is not quite what you would hope or expect from a player of his quality. Correct. And in the 111 games that he's played in the Premier League for Wolves, he scored 11 goals and he's got 20 assists, so 31 contributions. A lot of people, I won't group myself into this. A lot of people get angry at Brennan Johnson, thinking that he's not out there. And I'm not saying, I said this on my last stream when I had Mr. Box Office come and say, you can't be comparing Brennan Johnson to Pedro Neto. And look, you wouldn't compare them on the eye test, that's for sure. But when you're actually looking at the numbers, Brennan Johnson's got 13 goals, 13 assists in 73 games. So, he's not far off Neto. So we're arguing that Johnson is inconsistent. He's a year younger than Neto. From what we've seen, he's slightly less injury prone. We don't know, touch wood that he doesn't get injuries. And Neto is going to cost a similar amount, probably more, for a player that you don't know if you're actually going to be able to get more than half a season out at best. So the football fan in me wants to sign him. The more realistic fan in me thinks that we won't take that risk. And I'm not sure that we should take the risk.
With Pedro Neto, I can understand where you guys are coming from, where you don't really want to spend the big cash, but I do think he is, when healthy, he does look to be exactly what we're kind of looking for with the instructions that Ange is asking for his wingers, right? He likes hugging the touchline. He likes staying out wide. He can take on his man with both feet. He can basically play on both sides as well, right? He can whip in across with his left. He can whip in across with his right. No problem dribbling on either foot. He has a lot of the attributes to a degree that we're looking for. It's just, the big question mark has been the injuries. And the fact that Sam listed out, what was it, like 10,000 minutes or something like that, or 12,000 minutes? Is that
shocking? Roughly 10,000 minutes and roughly 6,000 minutes played.
So just around, a little over 50%, it sounds like, in terms of total games played. And that's a huge spread. That's a huge span of games. So I think that's actually not much, kind of room to feel like, there's not maybe enough data there. Like, you can tell the guy has injury problems. And I think even the recent injury that he had that last season, even the announcers to the analysts and everyone all kind of had this like collective sigh and like, sort of, kind of feeling of just sadness towards him, because they have felt like how many times have they seen the guy just randomly pull up with a hamstring, or randomly pull up and he has to be taken out of the game. Lots of times doesn't even feel like it's contact related with Pedro Neto. He'll just kind of sprint down the wing and then he'll just feel something and having to take himself out. And is that really worth spending the 60 million pounds or whatever it might take that Johnny was suggesting? It doesn't really feel that way. Whereas Eze's release clause is probably close to something like that, if not a bit more. And we know
it's
that
more 60 plus 8. But the thing is, I think he's mentally shot, Jack. Right. What I mean, I was going to say mentally shot. That's not quite right. That's not fair. I would say he's on a mental downer of positivity, right? How can you be positive about your performance? Okay, when every time you make the run, we saw it with Ryan Sessegnon over and over and over and over again. He'll probably go back to Fulham now and smash it and score against us, something stupid like that. That will happen. I don't know if we got a team of vets at Spurs, but maybe they got the same at Wolves. But I do worry how much that takes a toll of you when you're going into tackles, the 50-50s. It must get to you at some point. Personally, I'd rather be signing someone. As much as I love Pedro Neto, I mean, we've all seen when he's on fire, he's like a fantastic player. But I think I'd rather sign a player who I know is mentally in a positive place and thinks he's on an upward trajectory in his career, and he's not so injury prone, and he has a better return than Brendan Johnson.
Does he stylistically suit the system better than some of the other candidates, like Chiesa, some of the other players we've been linked with, though, Johnny
I
and
think
Sam?
he does. He's more of an out and out winger than the big one that we're linked to, which is Eze. They have some similar traits in terms of like being able to dribble with the ball and take players on. But I think that with Neto, you'd find that he'd play wider and more, like you say, in the system to suit Ange than Eze would, which I think is what some people have concerns about with Eze. Is he going to want to cut in too much? We've already got so many players being congested in the midfield, which is one thing I really thought about the K-League game, that we just had so many players in that midfield. It was so congested. And for the first, 20 minutes, I won't say too much more about it because I know we're going to go into it. But for the first 20 minutes, I was just thinking this is very frustrating. And I'm seeing similar patterns to what we've seen last season where teams kind of know what to do against us. So I think Neto would be in that one specific area. I think he would definitely be better than Eze. I'm not saying either player is better than the other. I'm just saying, he is going to stay wide and take people on out wide. He also cuts in. I'm not going to say he doesn't, but I think that he has a bit more of a profile in that regard than Eze does.
Eze's more of an all-rounder. Eze can play the 10. Eze can play on the left and drift in. Eze can take free kicks and score them. He can create goals. As an all-round player, he's all day long. He's worth that money, where Neto is questionable. But, whether they deny it, they keep denying it. For me, Chiesa ticks a lot of boxes, the Tottenham boxes, when you look at the fact that Fabio, Juventus, Fabio, 26 years of age, only 25 million. We can have one guy that's 25 million and injury prone, who's an international, or we can have 60 million or 50 million for a guy who hasn't scored that many goals and is even more injury prone. What should we do, Daniel? Let's go for the guy that's 25 million. The only question will be Chiesa's demands would be astronomical, and Neto would be happy to get out of Wolves. So it depends where the balance lies there with the structure of the deal. But as much as they're making the noise for Neto, you've always got to remember that the main man, Fabio, loves a diversion. When we were talking Raya, he came up with Vicario. When you're thinking left, he goes right. So we need action, though, now. We've all had enough now. We've all had enough, right? Yeah. Just deliver the goods, deliver them for Ange, and put us fans out of our misery.
Certainly.
I will say, Johnny, on the Chiesa signing, his goal record is much better than Johnson and Chiesa. Correct. He's got 90 contributions in 235 games.
Yeah.
What I would argue, though, is that he also has some injury concerns. I've got minutes played against what he's got as well, like I had with the Neto, and he's played roughly 21,500 minutes. Sorry, he's had 21,500 minutes available to him, and he's only played 16,500, which is not as bad as Neto, but it's still concerning enough when you're looking at these players. But what I think goes in his favor, if we are looking at him, is 25 million compared to the 60 odd million that Wolves want for Neto, is obviously making a certain bold fellow, look a little bit more towards that signing.
This Charles makes a very good point. We want players that are going to come in, not make demands, not come in here and think that they're better than everybody else. You've got to earn the right. Under Bill Nick, you play for the badge. You had to earn the right to play for the club. When you came into the club, you see, I'd like to see when these foreign players come in now, that there's stuff all over the dressing room and the changing rooms down at Hotspur Way that tells a story about what this club is about. If you're coming, no disrespect, whether you come from Romania, Brazil, Guatemala, wherever you're coming from, right? When you turn up, you don't know the history of the club and what it means to play for the club. So, some of Nicholson's sayings that he was famous for should be part and parcel of, what it's all about. And, if someone's going to come to the club and say, I won't come to the club unless you pay me this, unless you do me this, unless I'm guaranteed, a starting role, it's not going to wash. That's not, we got rid of these type of players who were controlling the dressing room and forced out numerous managers. We don't want that again. Listen, it's all up in the air. Hopefully there's something left field that we haven't thought of that will come in. Craig Shakespeare's just died.
Yeah, I did see that as a Fabrizio Romano update.
Yeah. Was he that old?
60.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very young. Yeah, and it looks like that's going to be.
Sorry, take it on a down. Sorry, just
take on. Yeah, no, it's going to send shock.
We've gone from bad weather now to death and Spurs transfer window. Sorry.
Just an average Thursday afternoon. Average Thursday evening for Spurs fans. Just quickly before we move on to Ange Postecoglou and the frustrations that he showed at the water break during the first half, just want to ask you guys, these starlets that Spurs have been linked with, do you actually see Spurs signing any of these guys for the reported 50, 60 million, whatever it might take for them to get through the door? Or do you see us just leaning on, like a cheaper signing like what Chiesa might be or something like that? What do you expect to happen? Start with you, Johnny, and then go to Sam. Is your hope gone on signing an Eze or a Neto, basically?
No, look. I think if you want to make 95% of the fan base happy, you go out and you sign Eze, right? No one's going to complain, okay? And if you're complaining, if you're the 5% complaining, you need to go and have a lie down and have a word with yourself. But I can't see it happening. I can't see Spurs being able to come up with that fixed fee. Yes, the fee's payable over stages. It's not a one lump sum, but it's a huge commitment. You're talking about 60 million. Then you're talking about the bonuses of another 8 million. Then you're talking about, he's going to come here and he's probably on 100, 120 grand a week currently because he's signed a new contract to up his wages massively. He'll want another wage increase. So you're looking at even more millions. I can't see. Can we afford the wage? 100%, because we've cleared out probably £1 million a week in wages in the last year. If you work out between Perisic and Kane and on Dombele and Lloris, add them up yourself. Yeah, we can afford the wage. It's just how do we find the money for 68 million spread over, I don't know, a couple of years, what have you. So I think we are hanging around. My real belief is that we're still hanging around in the hope that we can do a deal on Conor Gallagher.
Or, geez, that's the funny one. But you're getting the vibe that Spurs are just going to be hanging around, waiting for somebody to eventually kind of break or waiting for somebody to fold.
100%.
And Daniel Levy,
I think that's what's going to happen.
He'll wait the longest. It's like, keeping your hand on the car, to win the car. He'll keep his hand on it the absolute longest, more than anybody, till someone else breaks. What do you think, though, Sam? Do you still have any hope or any hope of, an Eze or a Neto coming through the door? Is that just something that's out of the question now for you?
I think as a club, we're kind of like Scrooge, right? We've got all this money. We flaunt that we've got all this money. And then when it comes to, just actually paying for something extravagant in regards to an Eze signing or a Neto or a Tony or whoever you want, we pull our pockets out and we're like, we haven't got any money, or we haven't got the money to make those kind of signings. And I think that's where people argue about the ambition of the club. And as I've said on other streams, the Jack Grealish transfer window saga for me was when I kind of lost a lot of faith that we'd ever sign anyone, you know, who was half decent rather than just a prospect. I think personally that Ange's little experiment with Kulusevski is kind of him not necessarily showing the fans, but it's him kind of thinking I might not get some of these signings in that I need, and I need to kind of think outside the box to get the positions filled that I need. And I'm not doing Kulusevski down because I think he's had a good pre-season so far. Again, obviously it's pre-season and we've not played any teams that are of the quality of the Premier League. That's not to disrespect any of these other teams, but I think that's just a given, you know. I'm obviously hopeful that we sign these players. I don't think that we'll sign more than one sort of household name, if I can even call players that. But like Johnny said, and like you've said, I think that we're a club that sort of feeds and survives on opportunity, which is why I kind of think that although Brentford have obviously had this injury with their new striker that they've brought in to supposedly replace Tony, I do think that we're going to go quite heavy at the end to try and, you know, see if we can test the waters with them of what they would be willing to accept for Tony, or let him potentially, you know, pre-negotiate with other clubs to go on a free in January.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm a little bit concerned, but I see a lot of people saying, you know, the window's almost over. How have we not signed anyone? And it's like, well, there is still like 40% of the window left. You know, that we've never really, other than the last couple windows, been a team that actually signs players early. So I wouldn't throw my toys out the pram just yet. I'm definitely concerned, but I'm not going to cry about it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I feel. Would you mind, Jack, bringing up David Clark's comment? It was
just to add there, Sam. Just to add, Sam, to your Tony comment there, I can't see them letting him go. Relegation is £200 million. It's costing you. You know, to sell Tony for 40 million, they'd rather let him go for nothing and save their unless they've got some insurance policy on their new striker, which can get them some money, which will enable them to put down another deposit on another striker and another replacement to then let him go. That's the only possibility I can see that Tony's going, because who in their right mind would allow Tony to go without the replacement in place? I just can't see it. Even if they offered 50 million, which I can't see it, even if they did, you know, what are you going to do then? How, you know, are you going to have time to replace him? I don't know.
Sam, you wanted to address this, and then I was going to give my final say on this.
It's actually not this one. It's I'll just read it. It's all right. He said, outside of Højbjerg, you can't name a man or a woman in world-class sports that don't get injured. Don't get injuries, because they do. So you're trying to tell me top Prem clubs don't buy players with a list of injuries? No. Yeah, that's the one. So to kind of, I don't think any of us are saying, I don't think any of us are saying that we won't sign players who have injury histories. I think the concern with a player like Neto is he misses half a season with recurring injuries. So, you know, people are, like, I think Johnny mentioned it earlier. Look at Sessegnon. You know, this was a player who was so hyped when we bought him. I will admit, Sessegnon was like, I was over the moon when we signed him. I thought, you know, this player is going to be the next big thing for Spurs over the you know, the course of the future. We signed him on a pretty long term contract. And then now look at how people were talking about Sessegnon. You know, they were sort of mocking him on Twitter when he's getting injured after playing 10 minutes against Burnley in the cup, or, you know, he's getting injured putting a cross in for the under-21s.
He got injured getting out of the car.
Exactly. Like, you know, we laugh and joke about it, but these will soon turn toxic when you're thinking you've got players that have ability, but you forget how good they are, because every time they come on the pitch, you think they're like brittle boned or something, because every time, you know, they come into some sort of contact, or in the case of Neto, anytime he stretches his legs a little bit too much, you know, he pulls up with some sort of injury.
Yeah.
So I think that's the concern. I don't think anyone's saying that we will only sign players that have great injury history, because like this doesn't happen. And I think that you're wrong to say outside of Højbjerg you can't name a player that doesn't get injuries, because even players like Son, even players like Son don't really get that many injuries, you know, and when they do, they're only out for a handful of games. So we're not saying, because everyone's human, you're going to have some sort of contact injury or something. So
the point here, Sam, is that if we had untold, I'm sorry, what was the guy's name? Sorry, I've just forgotten his name. If we had untold amounts of money to spend in the market, then, you know, this is a non-conversation. You know, we like him, you know, he could be injury prone, but don't worry, you know, we've got other players, okay? But when your funds are limited, which they clearly are, and we've been bitten more times than a mosquito lying naked in the middle of the jungle, right? I just think, you know, I just think that, you know, we have to be really careful. It's obvious funds are limited. So, you know, if we are only going to sign one or two players, let it be the guy who's less likely to be injured, because we know what Spurs have got a terrible record of managing injuries. We can talk about Bentancur at Leicester. I could talk about a lot of things. You know, the intensity of Ange ball, the getting up and down the pitch, the high line. All of the things which would contribute to a guy who's already suffers from injuries getting injured again. It's not to say we don't go and sign a player who hasn't got an injury record and 2 seconds later he gets injured. Look at Yoro, for example, signed for Man United. He's out for 3 months. Brentford signing, he's come in, he's out for the whole of the year. So it does happen, I know, but, you know, it doesn't mean, you know, you should put the blinkers on and ignore what's staring you right in the face. I hope he comes and he's a smash hit, whoever it is.
I mean, I think where Spurs could probably have some frustration with is kind of the guys that we're all linked with are people that pretty much have release clauses and the clubs aren't really budging on too much. And Daniel Levy, we all know, is a guy that likes to do the negotiations. He really lives for it. And if it's going to be only done simply, which is you have to hand over a big wad of cash and basically satisfy the club's needs of needing basically a ton of money up front, that just doesn't really suit how Levy ever does his business. So I think that could lead to why we've had this potential stall in negotiations, or it's been taking a long time because Levy's not really getting it the way that he might want it to. That's not to say that we won't get these signings, but there might not be happening as soon as we would like, because it's just not in the terms or in the situation that he normally would prefer, which is he has some leverage or something over the club that then he uses to try to get the deal done. He even just recently on Talk Sport, I heard a great conversation, and they were talking about how with Levy, like he offers like 10 different ways for the club to be able to pay for the transfer and how that would suit the, you know, the club that's being offered the money. He can't do that in this situation. He basically has to offer them almost, what is it, like close to 70% of these fees, like up front and a big wad of cash. It's just not how we normally do our business. And I think that might lead to a last minute saloon kind of a summer window. And it's a disappointment too, because I think in the last, 2 windows, maybe I'd stretch it to 3, I could be wrong, but definitely the last 2 windows, I felt like Spurs were doing their business relatively early. They weren't doing all the business that they needed to, but they were doing it pretty early. Look at even last summer to even also the most recent January transfer window. I mean, some of us delusional people like myself here would probably start to think that, oh, maybe Spurs are changing their act a bit here. But now that we find ourselves back at the last minute saloon situation, it's all a bit confusing and it's all a bit frustrating. But we do have some questions on Ange Postecoglou and the game yesterday, everybody. If you do want to stop us at any point, again, you are welcome to stop us with a super chat or put in a starred comment, and I'll try to bring it up on screen. And I thought that was a great comment from Davey Clark to, you know, get some kind of conversations about Pedro Neto and the injuries. But we're going to go on to the next one about Ange Postecoglou and his frustrations. And we saw his water break outburst. He's saying, "I've got one thing to say. We are going on the press, man for man. Just go man for man," he bellowed at the rest of his Tottenham team. Could there be a frustration with how Spurs have been maybe defending so far, conceding too many goals and chances to low-level opposition? Is there maybe a deeper reason for why Ange Postecoglou showed so much frustration yesterday? Or is it just he saw something he didn't like and he's just kind of, going through the ropes with his team here? Go to you maybe on this one, Sam. I mean, what did you make of Ange Postecoglou's outburst?
Look, I think fans like to see that sort of thing, right? I think Conte was revered a lot at the beginning because he was so passionate. When it came to those sort of things, he was, people would be on the sideline, cheering him from the sidelines when he was getting angry. I think the concern, at least for me, is that we are conceding too many chances. But for whether Ange is frustrated with that, based on the fact that we're playing two centre mids as centre backs and an attacking midfielder as a left back, I don't think you can really ask. I know that the quality of the players, as I said before, that we're playing aren't as high as they will be, but I don't think you can really complain too much or be too frustrated about that when you're kind of just putting players in to fill the positions at the moment with that, in that regard. So I don't think that would be his frustration, but what I do think he was frustrated about was just, maybe letting these players just kind of run unobstructed, because there was a lot of times they got in behind, especially in the second half. But obviously in the first half, they were getting in behind. But like I said, we're missing the likes of Mickey van der Ven, who are crucial to the way that we play. We don't have that power of destiny on the side. And we're playing kind of this mishmash of a team. We had a very young, inexperienced midfield, players who haven't really felt what it's like to play for Spurs yet, or play for a big club in general. Obviously, kind of excluding Sarr because he's had quite a few minutes last season, but he's still only 22 or 21 or whatever he is. So it's not like he's Moussa Dembele in there. So I'm not concerned with Ange blowing his top a little bit. I think he was also just trying to rile the players up a little bit to kind of get them a bit more into the game.
Is that like part of preseason? You got to get your first yell in. You got to get your first kind of reprimand in.
It's like you say, it's preseason. A lot of these players might just be thinking, I'll just go through the motions. We're playing K-League. It's a bit of a charity match kind of thing. The fans are here for Sonny. So I think it was just him kind of trying to motivate them a little bit to be like, yeah, I'm watching you. If you want a place in the team, you better do what I bloody well tell you. You know what I mean?
What do you think, Johnny? Is it just something that Ange needed to do in that moment of time? It's not something that deep to read into, or is Ange starting to show signs of frustration and maybe indicating something a bit deeper?
If I was the manager, I'd be massively frustrated. I've been sent on a tour halfway around the world, which is just knackers you, to go and train in a place where the humidity is horrendous, right? I'm flying out to Asia next week, right? The end of next week. And it's a 13-hour trip, first part of my trip. And then I've got another 3 hours after that, or 2.5 hours after that. And I can tell you, you're wiped out, right? The thought of getting out the other side and starting training. I know I'm not being paid and I'm not a professional athlete, but believe me, it takes its toll. Not only that, right? He's been forced to go. I mean, personally, with Euros and everything else going on, I would have had a European tour personally, maybe one trip, quick trip to America, New York, 6-hour trip, maybe something like that. To cut down on the traveling when you've got so many players missing or so many players coming back. We are going to start the season in, 14 days, 15 days? What is it now?
Start of the season will be in about 15 or so days. I think we play, was it the 16th?
We play on the Monday. I think we play 16 days. Right. So in 16 days, we're going to be playing, and Mickey van der Ven Romero haven't kicked a ball, right? Dragusin has literally just come back. Yeah, I mean, you know, the back three, the defence hasn't played in its position. We haven't been able to tweak anything. If there was anything to tweak, when did that happen? When did any tweaking go on? If we're going to tweak tactics, because I haven't seen any tweaking of tactics. And also what we've seen is Jamie Donnelly, who, yes, he'll play anywhere. He played everywhere for this under 16s, under 18s, under 21s. I think the only place he didn't play was a goalkeeper. He's willing to play anywhere. But we all know that Jamie Donnelly's best position is probably, you know, as a 10. He can play out on the left. I mean, we saw he was outstanding in that first half. I thought, although the others got the plaudits, I thought he was our best player in that first half. But Ange does not, I mean, Gray, what did Gray have? 45 minutes as a holding midfielder out of 3 games so far. You know, that's not allowing us to see how we're going to blend. Burzval,
center back.
Yeah, no, we're not seeing that. And, you know, his comment, I'm not sure who made the comment, but his actual words were, what a fucking
I love that part out.
We're going on the press man to man, right? So, you know, someone had said something, whether someone said to me that they were complaining it's too hot and it's the humidity. If you've not been to Asia, at this time of the year when it's raining and there's humidity, you have to experience it to understand just how bad it is. You know, I know I'm going out to Asia and I'm just going to walk out and it's, you know, you're soaking wet. You saw them sat on the bench and they were struggling to cope with on the bench. Brennan Johnson certainly was. So I believe he is frustrated. And also, I'm still not 100% convinced that he's fully embracing these kids, right? Look, Everton game, he turned around and said, when he was asked about the kids, he said, they're not good enough, okay? And then suddenly we get the Man City game where he comes out and he says, I've had my eyes opened this week by events on and off the pitch. Now, that isn't just about Spurs fans, you know, Spurs fans wanting Man City to win the game. I think he was told in no uncertain terms, you know, you've got to embrace the kids. There's been a lot of money and a lot of work that's gone in the last 2 and a bit years to bring that academy through. It's the best that academy has been in decades. It's the best structurally it's been in decades. We're looking to have a conveyor belt of talent. So for you to push it to one side, and I understand that because managers are in the win business, right? You could be out of a job in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. The average job is about 18 months if you're lucky. So he doesn't want to be the guy that's forced into playing all these kids. So he's gone on tour. He's got so many players missing. He had no choice but to take half of them with him. So I would be interesting to see when it comes to the crunch, will we see Mikey Moore in the squad? Will we see Jamie Donnelly in the squad? Will we see Will Lancashire in the squad? Or will they be disappointed and they will be shunted off out? I'd like to think at least 3 of them are in that squad for the season and don't leave. And those would be Lancashire, Mikey Moore and Jamie Donnelly. But I don't know. And also, you know, he made the statement that he wanted to get all these signings in early, like they did last season. And it hasn't happened. Unless you count Bergveld coming in January. I suppose that's early, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, what have we done? We haven't signed a player over 18.
That's
We're interested in a few players, though. We're monitoring, asking to be kept informed.
Yeah.
Interested.
And one of those.
We're interested, monitoring. Have you got the whole list? There's a whole list of.
Well, remember when the striker list came out? It was practically every striker under their sun in Europe, you know, by some of the ITK.
Well, Romano's just tweeted.
I was just gonna say, Sam, we're gonna have to go all over the place on this show and maybe go a bit of backtrack.
What's he dropping?
Just tweeted this here, everyone, and let me I'm going to put it up on screen actually in just a moment for you guys, but he has tweeted this. This is an exclusive, and we know this, that Fabrizio Romano, he's kind of more keyed in on the agents of the players than he really is with the club. So that's sometimes where his information does come from, and that's why it can be wrong and also why it can be right. And he said that Tottenham are now exploring a move for Dominic Solanke. So the key word, the trivia word, is exploring in this case. So take a shot for that. But he's saying he's amongst targets for Spurs. Difficult deal as he's a key player for Bournemouth. No formal bid, though, so far. Spurs exploring options to bring in a new striker and potentially a new winger based on opportunities. So lots of reasons to be frustrated by that, because it
Did
feels
they
like
say the word of based on opportunities? So
yes.
I did a comparison, right? And I'm just going to find it for you here. I did a comparison because, as we all know, Richarlison, and deservedly so, in his first season, he was absolutely shocking. His minutes were shocking. His goal return was non-existent. But I did a comparison. I'm just trying to find it now. It's just coming. Hang on. This is Donald Trump getting shot, as you do. Hang on a second. It's coming up. Let me see. Where are you?
The suspense is real.
Yeah, it's real. It's coming. Hang on a second. Bloody hell. I did a comparison on goals scored with Richarlison and Dominic Solanke. Where the bloody hell is it? Why is it when you want something you can't bloody find it? You murmur amongst yourself, and
I was going to say just quickly because
found
Johnny,
it.
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
Here we go. So, okay, so Richarlison, 1,480 minutes. Okay. 11 goals, 4 assists. That's a goal involvement every 136 minutes. Yeah. Dominic Solanke, 19 goals, 3 assists in 3,333 minutes. So that's well over double the minutes. That's a goal involvement every 176 minutes. So quite considerably worse than Richarlison. Ivan Toney, 4 goals, 2 assists, 1,449. So only 10 minutes less than Richarlison. His goal involvement every 363 minutes. Gabriel Jesus, 4 goals, 5 assists in the same amount of minutes. In fact, more minutes than Richarlison by 10 minutes. And his goal involvement was every 371 minutes. So, you know, we've got, in reverse order, we got Jesus, a goal every 371, Toney 363, Solanke 177, and Richarlison 136. Now, look, I'm not saying, he set the world on fire. I'm really not, but I just don't see the point. If we can get Richie fit, why you would, unless we're going to keep him. If we're keeping Richie and we're buying Solanke, I'm all for it, right? 100%. But I just don't see the point. I don't see the point personally. I know a lot of fans will disagree with that, but hey ho, he's going to be £60 million. I think is his buyout, or 55 million.
You just think they have to be definitively better than Richarlison? Is that what I'm getting from you, kind of, Johnny? Like they can't.
Well, like, it's not difficult. It's not difficult on his first season. Let's be serious, right? Mm-hmm. But on his second season and his goals per minute when he played, that stretch between November and February, he was the best striker in the Premier League. He scored more goals, scoring more goals than anyone. But a season, unfortunately, isn't 4 months. It's 9 months. So it's no good, and he's going to be injured again. I'm just putting it out there that everyone seems to throw that Richarlison is the worst striker in the Premier League. He's not. Okay, he's just not.
I'm in a similar boat to you, Johnny. I'm a big fan of Richarlison's and a big defender of his, but my only gripe with him has just been that injury record where I think he lets himself down on a lot of occasions. And when the time is, for him to shine, or when, you think that he can start, silencing some of his haters or some of his critics, he always pulls up with some type of injury or something like that that really just doesn't help him out very much. And then when it feels like everybody's starting to ignore him, he might come back and score the goals like you say he does. It's just all in a very inconsistent type of spell. And he even did it when he had Harry Kane, in front of him, right? There were plenty of opportunities when Harry Kane needed a rest and Richarlison was just injured and wasn't available. And I just think that really hurt his reputation. I think that really hurt his own image with Spurs fans, where they didn't feel like they could trust him very much. And we can be a fickle bunch where we might give up on someone quite quickly. And it looks like the injuries can be a reason for us to give up on someone. And I don't necessarily blame people for that, because he has had some really inconvenient injuries to himself, but also to our own seasons and to what we were looking to try to achieve in a season. Was very dependent in some cases on Richarlison staying fit, and he just hasn't done. But a lot of people like yourself might be pretty underwhelmed by this Dominic Solanke rumor, because they want someone that is definitively better than Richarlison, someone who they know can get a better goal output, can be more consistently available. There are only a couple, maybe a few names on the list that I think everybody would agree with could be that, like a Gyökeres, a Tony, or whoever it might be. It's just that, it's going to be hard for Spurs to probably make that deal happen. Whereas a Solanke signing seems more kind of in the Spurs mold of a striker, sad as it may be. Or I'm kind of a Solanke fan, but I can see why a lot of people don't like him. The only reason I like
failed at Chelsea, failed at Liverpool. He's had a good season. He had a good season. He took some.
He had a good season under Gary O'Neill, but I think that's where it comes from, right? Is that he's only come good in the last 2 years, and that's a bit of a
18
stretch.
months, I would say. 18 months.
Bit of a stretch to even stretch it to 2 years. So I'm a fan of his for that reason, because I think he's starting to kind of come good to what maybe the original expectations were, but maybe it's a little too late, right? He's now, what is he, 27, 28 maybe at this point too? He's not
20,
really
I think it's the same age as Richarlison, maybe a little bit older. I'm not entirely sure. I know when I say that Richarlison is Brazil's number 9, they say, well, Brazil a toilet. So, I mean, that doesn't normally go down well. You never used to say that. If you were signing, the thing is, it's funny how football's changed. Back in the day, before you had social media, if you turn around and saying Spurs are signed Brazilian's number 9, there'd be thousands down at the ground waiting for him to come, to sign the shirt. We wait for him outside. That's how it used to be back in the day. And now it's like, it's nothing. Brazil's number 9. But
well, wasn't he the most informed Brazilian at one point last season? In Europe, but it also
look at the World Cup. Look at the World Cup. The 2 best goals in the World Cup he scored, didn't he? Number 1 and number 2 in the last World Cup. So anyway,
you and I are big Richie defenders. I do know that, Johnny.
Yeah.
But Sam, I know you want to probably get your thoughts on Solanke, and then we need to go to Tin Man Super Chat here about the backup goalkeeper situation, which I'm glad that Tin Man has brought this up, because that's going to be my pre-record for tomorrow, actually, Tin Man. So you're right on the right track with me. But any opinions on Solanke and this recent rumor, Sam?
I can keep it brief, and then we can move on to the Super Chat. I am kind of torn on Solanke. I think it might have been Ali Gold was reporting on Solanke like a good few months ago, saying that he was a player that Spurs were sort of monitoring, interested in, admired, liked.
Admired this time.
And I think that I understand people saying, and I do agree, he's only really had a season kind of at the top, as in, people actually talking about him as a player that teams might fear, for example. What I will say, though, to sort of defend Solanke a little bit is maybe he has, we don't know, but maybe he has turned a corner in his career. Because, I mean, look at, what's his name? Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa. He obviously tore it up in the Championship with, they had their front 3 with Ben Rama and I can't think of who it was up front, but whoever they had up front. And he was playing off the left. And then he got his move to Aston Villa. And I think it's a bit underwhelming. Because I think when he was moving there, I was a bit like, I kind of wanted him. He wasn't that expensive. I think we should have got him. And then I kind of cooled on that a little bit, thinking he hasn't really hit the heights that people were expecting of him. But then this last season, he's got people willing to spend 80 million on him, 90 million, you know? So it's all about perspective, and things can change in an instant in football. So I wouldn't rule out going for Solanke necessarily based on the fact that he's not always been great. I think that a lot of players have a lot of strikers and renowned strikers have failed at Chelsea. So I think that's kind of a write-off. You know, he started at Liverpool, right?
I think he was originally Chelsea Academy, and then he got his move to Liverpool, and both ended
Chelsea,
up failing.
Liverpool, and then us. Yeah.
Right. And then but then obviously, you know, he's playing for Bournemouth, and they played, you know, decent football under Eddie Howe, but until recently, you wouldn't have really put Bournemouth in any conversation as like a team to kind of like watch out for. So, but you know, maybe in a better system, with better players around him, he might do the job. I mean, the game against us where they had like 24 shots and we beat them 3-1 or whatever it was, or 3-2. He didn't really cover himself in glory, you know, missed a lot of chances in that game. But I did watch quite a lot of him last season, just, you know, seeing it. And I liked his movement. I thought he was strong. Some of the goals he did score as well were, you know, pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So look, I'm kind of 50-50 on Solanke. If Ange thinks that he wants him, then I'm willing to, you know, back him. I wouldn't go for him as my first choice, but I wouldn't be throwing my toys out the pram, so to speak, if we got him in.
Yeah, with Solanke, it's just I can see why he has a lot of doubters. I think there's a lot of reasons to be, you know, not that excited, to be doubtful of that signing. I just think if you want to, if you're welcome to put yourself in a delusional mindset like myself, there is a way to sort of separate the Solanke of old, the guy that basically failed at Chelsea, failed at Liverpool, versus the Solanke that's been at Bournemouth. And I think the Solanke that has been at Bournemouth, granted, like Johnny said, it's only been about 18 months, so that's where the big risk is. The Solanke at Bournemouth has been a very good player, and he's played under kind of two different styles quite well. I think he was good under Gary O'Neill, which is a very different style to what Iraola has, and with Iraola, he's also been very successful. And he shows that he can press, he can hold up the ball, and like Sam has said, he's had some really impressive goals this season, or this last season. It's just, you know, is he really what Spurs need to improve on someone like Richarlison? That's totally up for debate. Definitely is. And he seems like a very Spurs signing, actually, because he's not really the first choice of any of the fan base. He's probably a bit further down the list and could be a bit more realistic as well than some of the other names that we've been touted with. So it kind of makes a lot of sense for what Spurs would try to go after, maybe not what the fan base necessarily would go after. But Tin Man 007 talking about Brandon Austin saying, big up, guys. Do you think we should be looking for a strong number 2? As I think Forster has passed it and not been impressed with Austin so far. If Vicario gets injured, we will have major issues. I'm in complete agreement with Tin Man 007. I have a video about this coming out tomorrow. I don't really see much of the point of not giving Luka Gunter more opportunities here, because with Brandon Austin, he's shown that he's not really the best of shot stoppers. He's had a couple of errors. I think that Newcastle kind of postseason friendly, he had a really bad kind of error in that game that led to Newcastle's goal. I think the goals that we conceded in the most recent game to the K-League 11 weren't really that great from Brandon Austin's point of view. And then with his feet, he's really not that convincing. He doesn't look that clever or really that composed, really on the ball when put under pressure. Whereas Luka Gunter, he looked quite solid against QPR. He made some good saves, but then also with his feet, he just looks very clear of the rest of the other goalkeeping options. For me, guys, I don't know about you, but if we're not going to sign another number 2, I'd rather Luka Gunter be kind of promoted up to maybe at least the number 2 or number 3 position ahead of someone like Brandon Austin. What do you guys think?
For me, we have probably the 2 best goalkeepers I've seen at Spurs coming through our academy since a long, many years. Josh Keeley and Luka Gunter, right? I was at the Spurs Arsenal youth game, and Gunter was in goal, and it was no word of a lie. I lost count how many saves he was making, save after save. It was embarrassing how we were 1-0 up, right, from I think it was Susop Bell goal. And he was the one man. He was the one man mounted stopping it. I was sat with, it was obviously sat with Arsenal and Spurs fans in that game, and they were going on. This keeper's unbelievable, and he is unbelievable. Josh Keeley was down at Barnet last year. He had a good loan spell. Probably go up a division this year, maybe to a better team. Is he old enough, Gunter? That would be my only question. Experience when you go in the Premier League, you get. Well, look, we saw what happened with Vicario and all his experience, how he got pushed around. But I cannot have the tree in goal anymore. I mean, let's take you back to the Carabao Cup, the penalty shootout where we saw the tree falling half an hour after the ball had passed him by. And, I just turned off the TV and said, don't bother watching anymore because he ain't getting near anyone, right? It was ridiculous. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. The whole night was embarrassing. 9 substitutions, 9 team changes, and then having to watch that. So he might be a nice guy. Might be a good joker. I don't personally think, when you look at a team like Arsenal, I remember when they had, what's his name now? The Villa keeper.
Martinez,
yeah. So before that, they had Leno, right? So Leno was outstanding. And then he got injured with a bit of a nasty tackle from Malpai, and he got carried off. And I said, that's the end of their season. That's them done. He was unbelievable. They're not going to replace him. And in comes Martinez. He's even better, right? Then they bring in the next one. Then they bring in Raya. They brought in the American guy as well, the American keeper, Turner. He's gone, right? Now they're looking at another top keeper. So they have a big emphasis. He's obviously got the hots for goalkeepers, whereas we are sort of fishing around with. I mean, I honestly look at Austin and think, lovely, but maybe you should be at Chesterfield or, League One, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Go out, earn your stars, earn your stripes, go out on loan. But I don't really want to be experimenting here. What would the fan base be like if, God forbid, Vicario gets injured a couple of games in?
Yeah. And
we've got Austin there. He did make 2 or 3 good saves over the games. I'm not going to deny that.
In the first preseason game, he looked excellent, didn't he?
And against QPR, he made a fantastic save as well as Gunter making his. So, but I don't want that to be the case. If you want to be a top team, you've got to have top goalkeepers. And if Gunter and Josh Keeley aren't ready, then we need to go out and buy another. But not, please. Foster, lovely guy. Thank you very much. But I don't want to see him in goal.
What do you think, Sam? I mean, Fraser Forster, you seemed to grimace when Johnny was taking you back through that penalty shootout. Are you Luka Gunter focused? Would you like to see him kind of be promoted and given a chance? Are you fine with Brandon Austin as a backup goalkeeper? How do you feel about the backup goalkeeper situation?
Well, I mean, I had violent flashbacks of, as Johnny put it so elegantly, the tree falling, especially seeing as I'm pretty sure all the penalties were just rolled down the middle, slightly off center. Yeah, that was disappointing. And I don't even dislike Forster. I actually thought he deputized quite well for Lloris when he got injured that season. But I mean, he's pretty old now, and his size is only going to mean that his mobility is going to worsen, especially having not played pretty much any football last season. That's not going to do him, any world of good. Austin, I thought you were a little bit harsh on him, Jack. I'm not gonna lie.
I definitely am, because I'm looking at just one game where he made 2 mistakes and he was good in the others. Right.
You're saying for the first 2 goals in the K-League game, I didn't really think that they were mistakes. He could have done better with the first one. I won't argue that. But I didn't think it was a complete howler like Lloris throwing the ball into the net against Danny Ings that one
Now I'm
time when he
grimacing.
broke his arm, and everyone was like, "Well, you idiot! Like, I kind of don't even care that you broke your arm. That was so bad."
I was there at Brighton behind the goal. You talk about the Brighton game.
Yeah, it was one. I can't remember what game it was, but like he basically threw the ball into the net or like left the ball on the line, and you know there's a lot of times that I'm just like, you know, with Lloris. I love Lloris, although as a 14-year-old, I met him in the street once and he refused to take a photo with me, and I'll never forget that. So I'll hold that till the day I die. But with Austin, you know, I agree with you. I don't think that his passing is great. I will give him a bit of leeway and say that, you know, he's never played any football. So it's going to be difficult to come straight in. I know, obviously, as we've said before, these are preseason games. There's not really a lot on the line. I do think that again, as I said, his passing is not great. And I don't think that Ange necessarily would see him as a player that truly suits his system. But I do think he's had, you know, a decent preseason. But then if we want to be a club with any ambition, we do need to go and sign another keeper. I don't know. I think the age of Gunter is a little bit concerning. I did think he looked good. And I'm not going to claim to be any goalkeeping expert. But I think he would benefit from playing, if we can find him alone, more regular football than just, you know, playing every now and again in a cup game or, you know, wherever we can kind of funnel him in to get minutes. And you know, he might end up getting no minutes. And then what does that do for him, right? So I don't think I'd necessarily want to sign... wouldn't necessarily want to have Gunter as our backup keeper. But I also wouldn't want to go and do... Well, I mean, obviously, I'd love to, but I don't think it would necessarily be the smartest decision to go and sign, you know, a kind of... well, I was thinking like an Ortega kind of player that you're not really sure who's better out of Ortega and Edison. You don't really want to sign a player that... you know, blocks the pathway for these youngsters, but also puts more pressure on Vicario to succeed. Because, you know, the beginning of the season for Arsenal,
Ryan Ramsdale,
there was definitely some discontent between the ranks. Not only the outfield players, but, you know, the goalkeepers. Raya was making mistakes because, you know, he was thrown in against a goalkeeper who, as much as I dislike Ramsdale as a person, had a very good season the season before. So, you know, I think it's difficult to go and sign someone that is immediate competition to actually be a first choice. I think we'd maybe be suited to signing a goalkeeper that has kind of already not had his career, but is kind of slowing down a little bit towards the end of his career, that has the experience to be able to teach players in the club. Even Vicario, you know, he's only 26 or whatever he is, so it's not like he's old and super experienced. So I wouldn't mind seeing a player come in. I don't have necessarily a player in mind, but I wouldn't mind seeing a player who's kind of been there and done it, come in, who is going to deputize and play well when he's relied upon.
Basically,
but isn't going to kick up.
Like.
But why have we got to do? You see, this is what I don't understand. Why have we got to do that? Why can we not just have two top goalkeepers? You know, Kelleher is a fantastic goalkeeper. You know, when he wasn't getting any minutes at all, and Spurs were getting rid of Lloris, I was saying, let's go and get Kelleher. Forget Raya. Let's go and get him. Let's give him an opportunity to be our first choice goalkeeper. There's a lot of goalkeepers out there. You know, I just don't understand why, you know.
Isn't he in a Luka Gunter situation, though, since he came from the academy, and that's kind of what you can get if you promote an academy kid? You know, he could end up being a very good competition for your current goalkeeper. But if you were to bring in a goalkeeper, you can't do that, maybe.
Listen, you will not hear me say one bad word about Gunter, Luka Gunter, or Josh Keeley. Not at all. I'm just a little bit concerned that maybe they're just a little bit too young to be brought in as the backup keeper. That's my, you know, that's my only concern. That's it.
Well, I
we
mean,
have got about 5 goalkeepers at the club. We got more goalkeepers. And it's like, we seem to have the hots for goalkeepers and wingers. We sort of forget about the rest of the thing. Like, why can't we start collecting strikers and number 6s? That would be nice.
we have 20 goalkeepers and wingers, but Spurs fans don't seem to like many of them. And
No.
in the goalkeeping situation, it was ridiculous last season to see us have 5 goalkeepers in training, yet we didn't have any Europe or anything to be competing in.
Well,
Just what a
exactly.
ridiculously privileged life, you would say, as the backup choice goalkeeper. And for me, I just think Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman, if they truly were good enough, I think they would have already had their chances and would have had their time to crack into the team. But the fact that
Correct.
they even did bring in a Fraser Forster ahead of them, someone who is at the very twilight of his career, suggests that they don't actually rate, Brandon Austin that much. And or even the case of Alfie Whiteman, they've really just been used as homegrown pawns this whole time. And in the case of Brandon Austin, it looks like he's even won that battle with Alfie Whiteman as the homegrown pawn that will be kept around, at least in some sort of fashion. But Tin Man, I have a video on this coming out tomorrow. I feel very strong about Luka Gunter. I just think he is going to be a better goalkeeper than Brandon Austin will be at some point in his career. So might as well give him that chance sooner rather than later. But I also agree with what Johnny has said, that with goalkeepers, it's a bit different, right? It's not like an 18-year-old midfielder that you can, embed in. It's a totally different position. They might need that experience away from the club. Takes a lot of time to develop your craft as a goalkeeper, develop that experience, and also kind of beef up a little bit, because it's a position that you can get bullied in, you can get pushed around. There's a lot of various elements to it that is very different to like playing as a center back or playing as a striker or anything like that. And I can't claim to be an expert on it. It's just, I feel that Luka Gunter is just better from what I can tell, but plenty of people might disagree with that, and that's totally fine. We're going to go back to the Ange Postecoglou thing quickly, and then we're going to move on to James Maddison and then see how much time we have left after that. But on Ange Postecoglou and kind of the frustrations that he was showing, I just had a question on this, guys. I mean, he looked very passionate and he looked very assertive and he looked very angry. Spurs fans in the past, as well as the players themselves in the squad, used to have an issue when Conte and Jose kind of did that type of thing where they would get really upset with their players. They would kind of call them out like that. What makes it different between Ange and Jose and Conte? Or is it kind of the same thing and people just like it when Ange does it versus when Conte and Jose did it?
Ange has got the fans, Ange has got the fans. Mourinho had the fans because they were excited about him. But, we've had various incidences over the time. Didn't we have one with the ball boy or something with Mourinho? He won them over with that. And then, we had Conte leaping into his coach's arms, straddling him. We had some moments, but Ange does it with a little bit of class when he's discussing it and does his press conference. Conte would throw his own granny under the bus. He didn't care, right? What you want to blame me? I'm perfect. What are you talking about? I'm the greatest coach in the world, right? You want to blame me for all these players being rubbish? Give me the best, and even then I'll complain that they're no good, right? So no, I think Ange has got a little bit of credit in the bank because he's new and because his football's exciting. I'm glad he gave him a bollocking. If it said, it needed to be said. Okay, guys, wasn't really happy with that. See if you can do better in the second half. Well, it wouldn't motivate me. So, tell him as it is, you're not happy, and give him a roasting. And that's what he did. I still don't know who it was. I'd love to know who it was that said the stupid thing.
Yeah, you wonder.
But we don't know. Maybe it will come out in time. But I don't see it's an issue. We just made a big issue because we heard him say it. And then, if you remember, I think it was pre-season at home, he was recorded shouting something in a game. And that was made, a big thing was made out of that as well. It's part and parcel of being a manager. You know, in the presser, they're all lovely and cuddly and fluffy, unless you ask them a stupid question. But behind closed doors, it's tough. It's a tough business. Shape up or ship out.
What do you make of Rain Man's comment? I think this is relatively accurate. Ange is doing it on the pitch and in the changing room. The bollocking, the reprimanding of the
Correct.
players, whereas Jose and
Oh,
Conte did it in the press conference. Is that the answer to
100%.
the question, do you think, Sam?
Yeah.
That's the difference?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, kind of building on that, I think that like a lot of the players, at least in the first season, spoke about Ange as kind of like a father figure. You wanted to make him proud. You wanted to kind of impress him. And I feel like when Ange is doing it, he's kind of like that teacher at school who was, everyone would always say, "Oh, you've got Dr. Lawrenson." That was my Spanish teacher that everyone was scared of. You've got Dr. Lawrenson as your Spanish teacher. Oh, like, good luck, mate. She's fierce. And then you go into your class and you realize, if you actually do what they want, they're one of the best teachers you can have.
Yeah.
So I think that Ange, like, he's doing it to, as I said before, motivate these players to do better. Whereas, and it's not, he's also not like, yes, he's obviously telling them off, but he's not throwing them under the bus like I feel that Jose and Conte did. I think that Jose he could be quite, nasty at times with how he sort of went about his business. Like, I always think back to who was it? To Troy Parrott.
Mm-hmm.
The fans were desperate to see Troy Parrott play, right? Whether that was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But he played him. He missed a penalty, and then Jose came out in the press conference and was like, "Well, that's why I wasn't playing him." And it's like, you've just, clipped the wings of a player that has a lot of hope, and said that, like, the reason we lost is because this player didn't score his penalty. It's like that, whether that might be true or not, he can. You can say it in a more constructive way. And as I said, I don't think that Ange is doing it to kind of like berate and belittle the players. He's doing it to make them better and to kind of drill in what he wants them to do and what he believes they can do.
I mean, I kind of am in where Rain Man sort of put it, in that it felt like Jose and Conte, they would say things to the players, but then they kind of ended up saying something different to the press conference, or to the media, and then it just led players to have to, I guess, believe their word, or kind of believe that they were being more genuine in their own personal interactions. And then the press conference, I guess they're just playing some type of media game. But players nowadays, they seem to kind of just want to have the manager just be completely honest with them, while also not dragging them through the mud, during the press conferences. And it's just a sign of the changing times, but also a sign that maybe the players just don't really care for that type of thing. They want the manager to be completely upfront with them and be completely transparent as well with them on the pitch. But then when it comes to the media, Ange Postecoglou is just not the guy to kind of feed, the media that sort of morsel of information of, what's been going on behind the scenes and things like that. He just doesn't seem to be a guy that wants to either drag the club through the mud or the players through the mud. And it seems to be something that the players respect. And as well as it looks like the majority of the fan base seems to respect too, which is interesting, because it is reminded me a little bit of, the days of Jose and Conte, that sort of a moment that he did have it in the first half. And I guess it's just viewed a bit differently for a variety of reasons, it looks like. We are going to move on to James Maddison here, someone who, it's not really as much about, we've talked a lot of times, about how we've kind of grown frustrated with him. But I think I kind of want to frame this conversation with, is he getting frustrated with himself, or is he getting frustrated in general with maybe the competition that certain players are giving him, in the case of Bergvall in particular? Do you think, Johnny, that James Maddison is starting to show signs of frustration? I mean, in that Korea game, again, like, I thought he played okay, but there were some moments again where he just doesn't look like the same James Maddison from Leicester a few years back. That's just one of the best creative midfielders in the Premier League, not even English midfielders, but one of the best in general in the Premier League. Are we going to see the best of James Maddison this upcoming season, or do you have some doubts?
I actually had. Listen, I like James Maddison. I liked him before he came to Spurs. Just for clarity here, I did worry, though, when I looked at how Celtic played and historically how he likes to invert his backs, and the midfield becomes like Piccadilly Circus. That doesn't suit James Maddison. James Maddison likes to play in space, and he doesn't have it. And when he doesn't have the space, he was starting to drop deep, very deep, to pick up the ball off the back four. For me, he's not a deep line playmaker. He's just not. He's the guy that should be playing behind the 9 or floating around that front area, around the front 3, trying to play balls in, try and break the lines. You know, what happened to the free kick specialist? Look, all I know is someone who I know in football said he might struggle in this system because of what I've just mentioned. The first 9 games he was very good. I mean, let's be honest, you know, he played very, very well in those first 9 games. He got injured in the Chelsea game, and we knew that he was going to be out a while. As soon as he went down in that Chelsea game, I said he's going to be out for ages. And I knew you had to give him time to come back and slowly find his feet again. But he didn't. I'm sorry. You know, he scored 1 goal in those 18 games after coming back. Now, Brennan Johnson got absolutely slaughtered. And I gave Brennan Johnson a hard time at times. You know, there were moments where I gave him praise and moments where I gave him criticism. But James Maddison got none of it until literally at the very end of the season. He was just starting to get a little bit of it, right? Bergvall just sits there. He knows where that ball is going. The second, before it arrives, he's already worked out in his periphery vision where he's going to place that ball. 1 touch, okay? He's got better upper body strength. He's not going to be going down every 2 seconds like James Maddison. He's 6'2". He's got left foot, right foot, can cushion the ball, can spin. He's got fantastic control for a kid of 6'2". And I think that if James Maddison does not find his feet, then he's going to find himself on the bench. I hope he does find himself there. I think if I was James Maddison, sat on the bench in the first half against the K-League, I'd be sitting there thinking, I've got issues here. I'm going to have to up my game, which is a great thing for Spurs. Because let's be honest, it didn't matter if James Maddison was running around on 1 leg. He was never going to play Lo Celso. It didn't matter. The same with a lot of players in this squad, you know, with Basuma, you know, it was Basuma or Sarr. Now you've got Gray. Now you've got Bergvall. You're going to have challenges for your position. He should make them up their game. I thought when he did come on, he got himself into some good positions, Maddison, but he was snatching at shots. You know, James Maddison of 2 years ago would have buried some of those. And that is his worst return in the Premier League since he's been in it. So one would say, you know, 4 goals all season. He got a free pass. How he got a free pass, I got no idea. Because James Maddison had a far better season than him, made far more contributions, and yet got absolute pelters. So it's time to step up and deliver and show that the person we bought is still there.
What do you think, Sam? Is Maddison starting to lose confidence in himself? Is he getting rattled by the competition from Lucas Bergvall? Will we see Maddison back at his best that, you know, we were originally trying to get from Leicester City?
Look, I hope so. You know, I think the reason he's had a lot more shielding from criticism is the fact that what Johnny was saying, you know, he's had very good seasons in the Premier League, you know, all-round contribution seasons. I think it was like when we signed him, he was like number 5 or something on the contribution since 2020, or since he joined the Premier League, he was like number 5 out of all the players in the league for goals and assists. And that's obviously why we signed him. I think it is concerning when we're asking fans of the show and we're being asked ourselves to trust Postecoglou with signings, when I agree, it kind of looks like we've signed a player who doesn't really fit with how Ange wants to play. So I
Yeah,
think
see
that
a
is a
square
bit
peg in a round
concerning.
hole. A lot of people give Maddison more of a tactical excuse for why he's not playing well. Would you agree?
Which I think that's fair, you know. Like Johnny was saying, he operates well in space, and the way that our system and opposition fans set up against our system, sorry, opposition teams set up against the system, doesn't allow those pockets for Maddison to kind of float into to operate where he really needs to and to get the best out of it. I agree with Johnny that he snatched at quite a lot of shots in the game, but I think he snatched at quite a lot of shots throughout the season. And you know, he would go on these kind of mazy, mind-bending runs, wriggling through players in the box, and then he would like roll the ball at the keeper or put it wide, and
I agree.
it was a very disappointing season. You know, I like Maddison. I thought he was going to be a good player for us. I still think he can be a good player for us. I don't think he's been a bad player for us. I feel like maybe how I've said that, as maybe people might think I'm saying he's bad for us. I don't think that at all. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's another kind of injury worry. So you do think like, oh, you know, if he gets a hard whack from the likes of a Yates from Nottingham Forest, who is going to have a personal vendetta against Maddison next season, let's be honest. You know, these kind of tackles on him, and he does get fouled a lot. I think you have to give him that credit that he does get an absolute battering in every single game we play, because everyone knows and I'm sure it was the same with Leicester, he is our main creative source. So yeah, I do think that you know, if Bergwall can show that he's not going to shy away from the step up of the league, that he will get decent minutes next season. I think it was Ali Gold that said that with his interview with Boss Anderson, the like sporting director of Djurgården, I think he was a sporting director, that he had said something along the lines of, you know, I think it will take Bergwall about 6 months to get acclimatized and sort of embed himself properly into the team. And, you know, if that's the case, then damn, we've got a serious player on our hands, you know, a physical, creative, technical player, kind of like, you know, you could see him being, in terms of how he moves, a bit of a midfield, a central midfielder, kind of Kulusevski type, you know, because I think Kulusevski gets quite a bad rap because he's indecisive on that right hand side, but his actual ability on the ball, especially for a big man, as we spoke about, like is actually very, very good, I think, personally.
Does
But yeah,
Kulusevski
Maddison,
handle like the congestion? Because you were saying Maddison doesn't have enough space to work with, right? Does Kulusevski handle that sort of congested space better than Maddison?
I think Kulu can be a bit of a battering ram if given the right guidance, because he's got similar sort of skills that Maddison has in terms of moving the ball quickly with his feet. But he's also got that physicality, which I think is what I like a lot about Eze when I see him kind of, you know, do a little bit of dancing and then use his bum to like body off a player. So I do think that Kulu could be, in games where there isn't a lot of space, could be a better alternative, which I think someone might have put in the chat. But yeah, look, I like Maddison. He's definitely been absolved of quite a lot of criticism. He needs to get better. What I will say in his defense is I didn't realize how quick he was with the ball at his feet. So I will actually give him like that praise. I think he surprised a lot of fans, I think, with how good he was with the ball at his feet. But yeah, I think ultimately the system hampers him, like Johnny said, and how opposition set up to our system hampers him quite a lot. So I need more from Maddison. We all need more from Maddison. as Johnny said, he was supposed to be this free kick wizard. We've not seen anything. And yeah, he's not scored enough goals. That's kind of the crux of my point.
I'd agree with you that he contributed to the kind of wastefulness that Spurs had in that latter half of the season, where everybody was wasteful with the chances that were presented. And I think Maddison got away with actually some of that to a degree. There were plenty of opportunities for him to either score or play the final ball, and it just felt like he would miss it, as did plenty of other players in this team. He's not the only one. And I also randomly agree with David Clark's very kind of specific, sort of issue. I agree with this a lot. I even pointed out in the watch along that for some reason he does get it stuck under his feet. He'll have really good close control, but then he sort of struggles to actually get it out from his feet to actually get any sort of power behind a shot or even a pass. Really, it's not even always just a shot. Sometimes his passes will be kind of played a bit behind the guy, and that's another thing with Maddison, like you said with the free kicks earlier, Sam. I didn't think of him as much of a dribbler when he first came to us, but he does have really tight, quick feet. But the passing range that I remember at Leicester City just hasn't really been seen on a consistent basis as we maybe thought that was there. He's not, switching play as much as I think he could. When he does pick up the ball off of the center backs or off of a deeper player in midfield, he doesn't go for, a dangerous pass to break the lines. He kind of just plays it a bit safe. And I just don't see that kind of, to my opinion, at Leicester City, what was basically the best, if not one of the best, creative midfielders pretty much in the league, at the time. And there was a reason why we paid such a big fee for him, because he really was, to a degree, close to a complete creative midfielder. And he really suited that system because he could score, he could create, he could play passes that no one else in the team can see or be able to execute. We're not really seeing that from Maddison. And sometimes even on a technical level, like Davy Clark is saying, I'm seeing some issues actually where he's just getting it wrong. Like he's just not able to get it out from under his feet, or he's making even the wrong decision sometimes. I will say this as well. He does tend to dribble it a bit too much in certain situations where he's right at the edge of the penalty area and he's just doing like 3 pirouettes kind of for no reason, when he can just kind of get the ball out from under him and just fire a shot or play a pass, and just ends up kind of dawdling on the ball a lot for me. And it's just not the Maddison that I remember from Leicester City. And I understand a player can go through bad patches of form, can lose confidence. And I just wonder if he's going to be able to find that, old version of himself. Again, the England snub certainly didn't help. That either motivates someone or it crushes their confidence. I wonder how he feels about it. And even this recent pressure from Lucas Bergvall, who practically has a free hit. Lucas Bergvall, he can try to displace a very well-established creative midfielder. He's only coming into his first season. He's playing super well. He's getting a lot of plaudits from the fan base, from the manager, from the rest of the teammates. I just wonder if Maddison's confidence is kind of starting to wear quite thin right now. Like, there's a lot of reasons.
Got to move the ball quickly, Jack, right? We saw with Bergvall and Gray how quickly they moved the ball. One touch, boom, turn, bang, gone. Right. And, I don't want him seeing carrying the ball. Right. OK. James Maddison was a big fish at Leicester. Right. He was the main man. He's come to Spurs. Right. And he was loading it up. He was full of confidence. Right. In those first few games, he's come back and it's shot to bits. Right. He's coming deep. He can't get on the ball. He's overplaying it. He's not in the positions that he should be. He's not taking his chances. He's not creating enough chances. He needs to up his game. He's not going to get a free pass from me anymore. Okay. We all want all the players. When we're sitting here and we're criticising players, just for people who are watching here, it's not we want them to be a failure. We want them all to be a success. But the whole point about these shows is to call it as we see it. And right now, James Maddison needs to step up, because I can clearly see that Bergvall, as second he gets used to the pace of the game in the Premier League, I mean, this isn't Premier League football. He'll start to see a little bit more of that when we play Bayern Munich. If he survives that, he's stronger on the ball. He's not going to be going down like Maddison is every 2 seconds on the ball, trying to claim a free kick, right? It's not going to happen. You try getting the ball off of him, it's already gone. He's spinning, gone. He's got 2 great feet. I think Maddison's going to up his game. And, let's hope for all Spurs fans, we see the James Maddison of a couple of years ago, because we will all benefit if that is the case. We want competition. We want everyone firing all cylinders. We don't want him firing more blanks in the territorials and, you know, ending up on the bench. You know, we don't really want that. But if it is, for once, I think we have a replacement that can do damage.
And do you guys think he's been playing well this preseason at all, or do you guys kind of getting sort of the
He's
same?
done all right. I mean, he's done all right. He played well when he came on in that second half. He found himself in space. He just couldn't connect. You know, he hit the post. There was, as I said, there was a couple of chances. The old Maddison probably would have buried them. You know, it's hard to judge now. Let's hope that, as I said, that he comes onto his game and he absolutely smashes it this season, because he's got a point to prove to Gareth Southgate. He's got a point to prove to Spurs fans after the second half of that season was very disappointing. 1 goal since he came back. So he's got a lot to prove. It's in there. You just got to unleash it.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I think we're going to transition now into the members' questions. Everybody who is a member, if you didn't know already, there is an added perk in which before these panel shows that we're going to try to run on a very regular basis throughout the season, you can get your questions into the community section when we ask you guys, and we start to answer them at the end of the stream as an extra section for you, for your support for us. And Daniel Harris has been very cheeky. He's thrown in 2 here, and they're both kind of related, so I think we'll do both at the same time. And maybe we'll divide it amongst ourselves, or if someone's brave enough to take one of these, they're certainly welcome. Daniel Harris has said, is Ange just a puppet on a string for a liar? He says, we were told we had transfer plans sorted. Then Ange recently said they've not changed, but we've signed a kid and 4 wingers on loan. Is Levy just a liar and is using Ange to fool the fans? And then also he says, do you think leaving signings late is a mistake, considering they'll have no time to get match fit or learn Ange's system? Daniel Harris, clearly very frustrated by the transfer window. Plenty of Spurs fans are. Anybody want to do that one on Daniel Harris about Ange being lied to by Daniel Levy?
I think Ange's lying. I think Ange's lying himself. You know, I mean, I don't, you know, there's a party line. I think it all came out. As I said, the Man City game, if you truly and honestly believe that rant was purely and simply about Spurs fans wanting Man City to win, then you didn't listen carefully. He clearly said that his eyes have been opened this week by what's gone on and off the pitch. And I believe that he'd been told that he has to play the kids. He has to embrace those kids. I don't think it went down very well. The last time he was told what to do, he walked, which was in Australia. He's not walking away from this. He's not walking from this job, right? He can give it all he likes. This is his dream. This is a dream job. He ain't walking away from this, no chance. And he wants to be a success. And, you know, I hope he is a success here. But if you believe they tell the truth, no. And is Ange being lied to?
Plenty of Spurs managers have in the past, apparently.
Yeah, but I think he's been given it straight. I think he's been told there isn't money. I think he's been told, you know, yes, we're trying to get the deals done. Is he pissed off? You know, he's going to sit there and say, I'm quite happy with the squad. That's the standard toe the party line. The only thing I would say is Mickey van der Ven turned up a week before the season started, and that worked out okay. I would just like to hope whoever we're signing is right now hard at work getting match fit, and not one of these players that's been, you know, on holiday for the last 3 weeks after, Euros or a Copa America. What do you reckon, Sam?
Very bravely answered by you, Johnny.
I agree with you in part. I don't think that Ange is lying, because I don't actually think. I think he's kind of, as you said about like reading between the lines. I think he's kind of saying to you that, like, you know, he said the plan hasn't changed. He never said what the plan was.
No.
So he might like. I think you're right. I think that he has been told the money's not readily available for you, mate. So you do what you got to do with the squad that you've got, and you know we'll do what we can to like throw a few players here and there, but you're not getting, your big 90 million Goalkeeper or whatever his name is, and you're at most going to be getting a 35 million pound player or something like that. You know what I mean? He said it. I think he's known this since he came in, which is why he said that comment about I'd rather sign 2 players for 50 than 100. Right? He's been trying to temper the expectations of fans for a while. I think personally, and I don't think he's lying. I don't think that he's been lied to. I think as fans we see all these rumors and we hear that we've got a plan, and we automatically think, well, a lot of fans automatically think the positive, right? Yes, we're linked to this player and that player, and they said we're going to sign players, but it's like they didn't actually say that. You're kind of reading what you want to read from the kind of vague comments that they've made. Like they've never sort of come out and said we are going to do this, we are going to do that. We're taking, and by we I mean the fans in general, are taking the likes of Romano's comments as gospel, and they're not. We've seen it many a time. He's made many mistakes, and I myself have often classed him as a bit of a tap-in merchant. So yeah, look, I'm not happy with how it's all going, but I'm also not surprised, which I've said before. So I don't think Ange is a liar. I don't think he's been lied to. I think they've been deliberately vague.
Yeah, and in the case
I'm
of
Ange in, by the way, just because I know we have a lot of Australians that come in, and if you say anything negative about Ange, I'm not saying anything negative about Ange. We're talking, what we think. I believe that rant was something that's really got his goat up, and he said, my eyes have been opened. Okay. I don't believe it's just one thing. He clearly said in and out, inside and outside the club. Right. So, I want Ange to succeed. I don't want us to be flip-flopping between a manager every 6-7 months. I don't want to see Ryan Mason as the interim manager again. Okay, I don't want that anymore. I'm sure most Spurs fans, bring us a cup, bring us a trophy, bring us some enjoyment, bring us some sunshine, not rain, because it's rained at Spurs for 4 years on the trot. We had a bit of sunshine this last year. Long may it continue. But I do think that he will be frustrated that he hasn't got his signings. But I think he is well aware of exactly who they're going for. He knows who they're going for because they've had the discussion with Paratici and Lange and the rest. So, he's aware. Okay. If he was kept out the loop and he still wasn't getting his players, then he'd be even worse.
And Spurs GCTV saying, hi, Jack and Dave. If the window were to shut today with incomings and outgoings as they are, do you feel we are a weaker or stronger squad? If you ask the question, I'll post my thoughts in the chat. Well, Spurs GCTV, let me give us your answer if you're still listening. But to you then, Johnny, what do you make of the fact that, if the window were to end today, are we stronger or are we weaker?
Well, we've got some, we've got 2 very good signings. I'm delighted with them. And I think, as much as people hate Timo Werner, Timo has a very good football IQ and he will understand Ange ball very quickly. Johnson's football IQ is not as good. So I think he will be an asset. But are we stronger? I would have to say no. Because, whatever you think of Højbjerg was the guy that came on, and steadied the ship. I mean, time after time last season, the amount of times, if you go back and look at it, that Ange mentioned Højbjerg coming on, steadying the ship, especially in those first 10 games, where he became a crucial member of the team. He was a warrior. It didn't matter if he had half his leg missing, he would still be there ready to play. And so I think he would be a miss. And I think we need depth. If Lo Celso goes, Reguilon goes, and all these players are going, it's all very well getting rid of them, and I'm all for it. But I think we might have got rid of 9 players, and we brought in 2. So depth isn't better. Our kids, our academy, and our youth product are slowly getting there. They're almost there. So if you added them to the mix because they weren't there last season, so that's a plus. The 2 signings are plus, but I would not like to say that we are capable of moving on this season with what we've got. I desperately think that we need another solid midfielder in case of injury, and we need a backup left-sided centre-back, come left-back like a Hincape, who can play both roles, or like a Geerstrude from Feyenoord, who can play, the 6, the right centre back and right back, and scores goals. No, if we close the door now, we would have good moments. Sure, we got good players, but I don't think we have enough. We have Bentancur to come back.
Yeah.
Is Lolo going to be allowed to come back? Is he going to be forced out? Is Lo Celso going to be loaned out? So if you close the door and they're there, I would feel a little bit more confident than if all of them were gone.
I personally don't think we would be that much weaker, but I don't feel like we'd be that much stronger either. I think we got some important outgoings done this summer. We got guys that were no longer wanted in the squad, were maybe even hindrances to what Ange Postecoglou was trying to build chemistry-wise, just, faith in him, faith in the team. We got a lot of, in some cases, bad characters out of the club. And then also guys that wanted to leave. We did end up shipping out, like Højbjerg and others in the team. And I agree with Johnny. I think Højbjerg was a really good asset to us last year, but he was technically a player that didn't really want to be there any longer. And that's important that we actually get guys in the club that do want to play under Ange and do want to try to build something here together. And just feels like, though, with the incomings, there just hasn't really been enough incomings to say that we're going to be that much stronger. It's pretty much just the same team on paper from last season, plus a few really good, talented starlets that we've added, but don't have very much experience. I think they will add something to this team, but how significant is that going to really be? I think we still need established incomings to come through the door, and then we'll be a much, much stronger squad. But I will say the outgoings, I don't know if Spurs have gotten the full credit that maybe they deserve when it comes to it. Because in the past, I mean, we used to be so slow about getting out the deadwood. And I felt like this summer felt a little bit different. We felt more efficient, or at least maybe ruthless is a stretch, maybe being a bit generous. But we have been a tad bit more kind of ruthless with some of the outgoings that we've made this summer, ones that I felt like we've needed to do for a long time now. So I think we're a bit stronger, just not that much stronger. Shawnee Maddox saying, what is a successful season for you guys? I'm passing this one to you, Sam. I mean, surely it's got to be a trophy, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think most people would want us to get at least 4th. I'm kind of the opinion, if we get a meaningful trophy, so I'm kind of excluding the Carabao Cup, even though I would take it, hands down, I would take it. Don't get me wrong, like I'm fiending for a trophy, like I'm itching. But I would want to see us, either win the Europa League, or win the FA Cup, or both. I won't count either of them out. But I would be, if that meant that we then came, between 7th and 4th, I wouldn't cry, I don't think. It'd obviously be disappointing to see us like finish 7th, don't get me wrong. But if we sacrificed, later stages of the league because we were actually going heavy for the FA Cup or going heavy for the Europa League, then I would, be willing to concede that. Although what I would say, to kind of contradict myself, is that I know it's not the final, but the spread of games we've got, from what I kind of remember, is not anywhere near as bad as it was on paper as to how the end of our season was last season. When we're coming up against basically all the teams around us in that final stretch of the season, with Burnley and Sheffield United dotted in and around there. So I would all like. I know I've said I'd be okay with a trophy and at least seventh, but I would also be pretty disappointed if we didn't have enough about us to kind of get by in these games against the so-called lesser teams. If we had to sort of prioritize the other teams.
Yeah. I think for it to be successful, Ange has to either, well, I think he has to go deep into with a trophy run because he didn't last year. And then we ended up finishing in the Europa League, which is still a success, but that means he has to do better than that this year. He has to probably achieve Europa League again and then actually have a significant cup run of some sort, or he has to finish much, much higher than the Europa League position that he did last season. I think those are probably two different ways you could qualify it as a relatively successful season. Inakoma saying, I've watched a few Spurs channels lately, and some of them have written off this season entirely due to lack of signings, but there are still 30 days left of the window. Yes, I would have liked new players earlier, but to write off the season is just crazy. I'm not sure where the question is. Inakoma, sounds like you're just a bit frustrated by the whole situation. But Johnny, I mean, you agree with
Well,
Inakoma
listen,
that there's still
he's
30 days
right.
left?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's right. People are writing off the season, and we've already won a tray. I mean, we won a lovely tray on the weekend. I'm hoping that at the home game against Bayern Munich, I'll be able to get an opportunity to get a picture with the tray, simulate on the winner's background. That'd be very nice. It'll go nicely with the Audi Cup. Look, I think I want to see progression. Okay. Last year, we started with progression and we ended up with regression, right? Okay. Had it gone the other way round and we'd started terrible and we'd been 16th after 28 games, and then we finished 5th, we'd be all raving about what an amazing season it was and we're on the road and we can see improvement and we're on the journey. Unfortunately, what happened was it was the complete opposite way round. We started great, 10 fantastic games, and then tended to get steadily worse when our form ended up putting us 16th in the form table up until I think the last game. So I want to see progression. I want to see a run, a proper run in Europe. That Europa League is there to be won this season. There's no dropping down from the Champions League. I don't want to hear any excuses. This is a competition that we should be going to win because, even if you don't get top 4, you win the Europa League, you're in the Champions League, guaranteed. So that should be our priority. Go for a cup, try and get top 4, and I want to see progression. I want to see us. He says he wants to win the league. Okay, well, show us the progression. Show us the progression. Natural progression will be finish 4th and a fantastic run in a cup. Okay, if we find ourselves in 7th or 8th place and we're out the cups, I'm going to be not happy, and he starts bad, the whispers will start by December. So I'm going to go for a positive start to the season. I'm not going to really commit myself until I've seen the first couple of games where I see that there's maybe a change in the setup defensively or in the system, a slight tweak, and who he's actually going to play in each position. Then I can make a decision. But I think we've got to be positive until there's time to be negative. We won all of our games. Okay, we have conceded, is it 6 goals in 3 games or 5? What was it?
That was the last result, 4-3. Hearts, did we concede 1 or 2?
3-2. It was 3-2
It's definitely been around 6 goals. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Around 6.
So, but let's see. Too early.
What's your striker, Sam? If you could bring in any bar Tony from Edward here.
Are we asking for like a realistic striker that I could actually see Spurs signing, or
you can be delusional striker? Like myself. You're welcome to dream.
Harry Kane. No, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough because the striker market is just so dry. You know, a lot of fans want players that they've only really seen highlights of, myself included, right? I don't watch a huge deal of foreign league football. You know, I watch the Champions League. I watch a decent amount of Europa League and Europa Conference, but I don't watch these players week in, week out. So there are a handful of players that I do like, but that's based on limited viewing. I don't know if I've got a striker, but I've got a sort of profile that I'd like, if that can kind of like suffice. I want a player who's sort of similar in terms of the physicality and size of Richarlison.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like them to be quicker than Richarlison personally, but able to use their strength to hold up the ball and bring other players into it, as well as run off the back of the last defender. I need them to be good with their head, and just need them to work hard. I don't need someone to be the most unbelievable striker in the world, because the system doesn't require that. You know, they just need to have strong movement to get into the positions to finish off the moves that Ange wants, and be able to bring the best out of the players that are around them. So I'm asking a lot, but I'm also not.
No, you've given at least a profile of something that you would like to see come through the door, which I think answers Edward. I think there are plenty of people out there that we could look at, but it looks like the striker market's kind of tough, Edward, because it's so expensive and just needs Spurs to, I guess, identify which one they truly, truly want. We're going to move up the list here, though. John Tucker asking, how much will we spend between now and the end of the window? I'll give a number to this one, unless someone has to, or wants to give a different number. I don't see Spurs spending more than 70 million in the next 30, sort of days or so. I think we'll probably spend around maybe 40 to 50 on whatever striker it ends up being. And then there could be another signing in there as well for around 15 to 20 million, or maybe two more signings, because Paul O'Keefe did say there should be around 3. Maybe there are 2 more signings that are something around like the 10 million, 15 million mark that are a bit cheaper. I'm not getting my hopes up for a big whopping, 100 million to be spent. But at the end of the day, Spurs on average, they usually spend around in total a little over 100 million each summer window. That's been the average of like the past couple of seasons. And so if Spurs were to spend under 100 million in total in the summer window, I would be shocked. And so I think there's probably, with the signing of Archie Gray and some of the other ones, I think we're going to spend around 60, 50, something around that mark, unless someone disagrees.
We're not spending 100 million net this window. Not a chance. Not unless someone comes in and puts the money in the piggy bank and buys Lewis's shares. Look, I went on about Levy going to Rothschilds months and months ago. I don't know how it's now suddenly a story. Everyone knows what they're looking to do. They know the price. Come in, stop with the bullshit. Just come in, pay the money if you're going to come in. But know this, Levy ain't going. You can buy Lewis's shares, but the megalomaniac will remain. There's money and there's debts to be paid. We got massive debts, and right now interest rates are high on the non-restructured debt that we restructured, the 670 million at 2.75%, which was a stroke of genius by Levy, because right now, if he hadn't done that, we would be absolutely crippled now, whatever anyone might be thinking. And so I think the money that we will be spending, so far we bought Gray, but we bought Gray with what's the name going the other way?
Joe Rodon.
Rodon going the other way. And so that will offset some of the money, and also the fact that the Gray money will be probably paid up over 3 years. It won't be paid up in a solid lump, which will enable us to probably buy 2 players max where we again structure the payments. This is why deals are taking so long. So we don't pay up the money, and we pay X amount per season. We probably have debts of around about 308 million owing on transfers. Well, we did coming into this summer, so we probably paid off some of those with the sales. So we could probably take on a couple. I wouldn't write off an opportunity of a loan with an option to buy for that third one as a last minute thing, with a club wanted to get the wages off the books and maybe buy a player. And so we do a loan with an option like we did with Kulu, which was an 18-month loan with the option to buy. That way you spread your money a little bit thinner. So I'm going to go for 2 with potentially a loan to buy option as well thrown in. But
Matheson.
nothing.
Okay. Matheson Edwards saying, what do you make of some of the other clubs' business this summer window? Who has done, in your opinion, the most impressive business thus far, and which clubs haven't? What's been surprising is, unless I'm wrong here, like Liverpool are kind of in a similar boat to us, Matheson Edwards, where they have a brand new manager. They're trying to rebuild a project, but unless I'm mistaken, they actually haven't made too many significant signings of any kind.
I don't think they signed anyone.
Yeah, they haven't signed literally anyone. So I think they're in a similar boat to us, where it's a bit puzzling why they haven't, with, you know, all the rebuilding that you would think needs to be done there. And also they want to show that they're backing a new manager. So I think they're in a similar boat to us. The team that everybody seems to tout as having the best window so far has been Aston Villa. And I think that's partially because they have done good business, but also because they've done the most business, which is usually the case. Spurs were, in fact, that team, I think just last summer, right? They had brought in so many players quickly that everybody gave us the, you know, window of this, you know, year trophy very, very early. And I think Aston Villa have done something kind of similar.
There's a link there, Jack. Come on, listen, look, okay. Scrape across the surface there. The Aston Villa owner is an Egyptian billionaire. He's got links with Saudi Arabia. Okay. Goes to Saudi Arabia. They paid massive money for Diaby. You know, they managed to get rid of Luis to, was it Juventus? Can't even remember now. It was Juventus, wasn't it?
Him and his girlfriend.
Yeah. And they also managed to do some deals with balancing the books with Chelsea, who are backed by the Saudi PIF fund with Clear Lake. Clear Lake's biggest investor is the Saudi PIF. It's all incestuous. If you scratch away the surface, you'll see it. This is how they've managed to do these deals. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of manipulation going on there, and they're getting away with it. And try stopping when the FA or the EPL investigate it. Try proving that the numbers that they're quoting for these kids that they've swapped between clubs are not figments of their imagination. What are you talking about? He's definitely worth 50 million, 30 million, right? That's how you circumvent the rules, and that's what's going on.
I wish we could have sold Skip for something that Aston Villa have done. I agree with you.
Correct.
Debottom Duda saying, how many of the youth team that went on tour to Asia do you expect to see starting or on the subs bench for the first Premier League game against Leicester? That's a great question, Debottom Duda. Sam, would you take this one for me? What hazard a guess?
Let me just make sure. So I don't think that any of them will be starting. There might be a handful of them, like maybe a Gray or something at the beginning of the season, because we've still got players that are coming back or aren't even back yet and might not be back sort of until the dying embers of pre-season. I think that, you know, towards the, you know, if we take into account the full season, you might see, you know, Donnelly might get more of a chance. I think it all really depends on the competitions as well, like how far we go, the kind of teams that we play in these competitions, as well as the sort of fan reception to how many changes that he makes. You know, like as Johnny said before, and we've all said, that Fulham game was criminal for a number of reasons, probably most namely the 9 changes. So I don't want to see these kids get thrown in just for the sake of it. I want them to be, around other players that have been there and have experience and can actually kind of coach them on the pitch and help them through the game, just to sort of manage their talent a little bit. So I think maybe we'll see, all in all, maybe 3 or 4 players throughout the season that we'll see considerable minutes for young players. I'm kind of not really including Bergvall or Gray in that. I'm kind of talking more about the actual academy players.
I think you can guarantee to bottom due to that Mikey Moore will stick around in some capacity, and as well as probably Jamie Donnelly has a strong chance, I think, of sticking around. It seems like Ange Postecoglou has a lot of faith in those two. Outside of those guys, maybe there could be another trickled in there, but I'm not too sure at this moment in time. Alfie Dorrington is a possibility when he comes back from injury, depending. But at the moment, I would put my heart at least on 2 making the subs bench. And then Lee Harvey saying, should we use the youth that have played so well this last preseason? I think we definitely should be, Lee Harvey. And what's interesting is they're pushing, I think, some of our first team established players for their starting roles. And that's a good problem to have. As much as we're having conversations about these starting players not playing so well, I think it's good to see that we have younger players that are really challenging them and pushing them for those spots. And then Chris Loney, lastly, I think we kind of answered that to a degree with, I think it was Spurs GCTV's question, about whether we're a stronger squad or not compared to last season. I pretty much said kind of stronger considering, all the outs that have happened, but there haven't been too many incomings. But the outgoings, I think, were necessary and were beneficial to us. I don't think we got rid of somebody that we shouldn't have gotten rid of, in my opinion. So we're slightly stronger.
Happy.
Yeah.
I've just said, Jack, I'm just happy, 2 years of going on about our youth and what was going on behind the scenes. It'll be over 2 years now going on about it, and listening to people when I'm telling them what is going on, because they weren't privy to that information, saying that it's just BS. I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in the first team. It's the first team. No players ever come through. It's all a waste of time. Well, I hope now that some of those people that I've been telling for all this time can finally see the shoots of what we've been talking about coming to fruition. And it's not going to be a one-off with just 2 coming through and then having another barren spell for 10, 20 years, right? This needs to be a conveyor belt. If Spurs are going to be competitive as a football club moving forward with FFP and PSR and the Saudi oil money, it's imperative that we have an academy to rival anyone's in the world. There's a saying, build it and they will come. And what happened was we built it, we had nothing in it. It was hollow, it was empty. It's no longer empty. Not only do we have the ones that are coming through now, we're buying the top talent between 15 and 19. That has been the directive for over 2 years now. Hence the reason us spending 2 million on Lancashire, which is unheard of. And we've got other players coming through. We've got Byfield. We've got a lot of fantastic talent, even in the 15, 16-year-olds that are coming in. We got the Irish boy up front, who's Deeney. He's had a really good start. Fantastic signing. Everyone was after him, but we're starting to get a reputation for having an academy. I know we all want it success today, most more than I. As you get older, you want it yesterday, not about today. And I believe it. I believe it will come, and then we'll be in a position, Jack and Sam, where we will only be saying, "Hey, we only need 2 players, not we need a whole team. We only need 2 players. We've got 100 and something odd million. We can go and buy 2 players, 60 million, 60 million." Then we're talking. Right now, we're behind the curveball, and I reckon we're about another 18 months behind a lot of these kids really establishing themselves as full-time first teamers.
If only we could fast forward to that point in time, Johnny, and not have to continue to sit and wait. But I think we are going to end off the show here, everyone. Really do appreciate everybody that has tuned in. And also please thank Johnny as well as Sam for giving up their time this evening, and also apologize to these guys for running a bit long on it. Sam, your Twitter. I know you've put that together here. Any plugs for yourself, sir? And also thank you for giving up your time this evening.
No worries. Thank you for having me on. Johnny, it's always good to get on with you. Very insightful about the youth, which I always appreciate. Yeah, look, I created my Twitter. I thought it was about time. While I'm away, I might mess around with some Photoshop and make some memes. I'm just I describe myself as a positive realist. So, I've been around the club for long enough to know that we don't always get what we want, don't often get what we want. But I'm also hopeful, pretty much every season that we might get our shit together. So I'm disappointed with how this window's gone so far, but I think the saving grace for me is that there's still quite a decent chunk to go. There are players out there. We don't always know the best players because there's so many of them. We have to try and at least trust the squad and the scouts and everything that they're going to bring in players that are going to work for us. I don't think they'll be absolute world beaters, but they could develop into them, and that's kind of been the club that I've known most of my life. So big up Jack. It's not easy doing this on his own, I'm sure. And big up the chat. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sam.
And I'll see you from sunny Cyprus.
Well done. Well done. I hope you enjoy yourself. Get some good tan lines and take your mind off of this Spurs nonsense, maybe for a little bit, while you can at least. And Johnny, I put your Twitter in there earlier. I'm going to put it in again now. Anything coming up for yourself? I know you were just back from a recent holiday.
Well, I'm actually going away. It's quite funny. When you said you're a positive realist, I think you're just really positive, Sam, basically. Yeah, I'm off to. I'm quite lucky. I'm off to the Olympics on Monday for a few days, and then I'm off to Asia. So I'm quite lucky, and I'll be looking forward to that. It's like I'm going to be like the junkie who doesn't have his football. I don't know how I'm going to cope with it. I'm going to be missing Leicester and Everton. The Leicester and Everton games, and I arrive back the day of the Newcastle game, so I won't be going to any of those three games, which pains me. So I hope everyone will enjoy them. You can find me on my Twitter, Johnny H3232, and on the other platforms, it's Let's Talk Tottenham 1882, which is on TikTok and on Instagram. So if you go and follow me on those, there's lots going on there. The platforms drive me mad. You post a video on Instagram, they love it, it flies. You post the same one on TikTok, you're banned. I don't get it. You've broken the rule. I got no idea. But both accounts seem to be moving up very quickly. So always good to be on with you and Sam. Hope Dave had a good time with his sister at the wedding. At his birthday. Sorry, I'm getting confused. And let's hope by the time you guys meet up again, or you and Jack and Dave do your show, we've actually got a signing. I think it's going to the wire. I really do.
Dave,
I think this is a deadline day extravaganza this year. Where's Jim White when you need him? Because people are holding out. It's like Mexican standoff. They want to do the deals. Players are overpriced. People are asking too much. The people are buying are offering too little, and that's why it's become stagnant. When you see like Liverpool, Man City not making any deals, not doing anything, then you got an issue. In fact, I think Everton have done more deals than Liverpool.
Man City have only completed one signing. I know they're Man City, but even them, of all people, have only done one signing. It has been very bizarre. But we'll leave the show there, everybody. Thank you to these guys for giving up their time this evening. Thank you to you guys for following along this whole time as well. Thank you to TinMan007 for supporting the channel in an extra way as well. A great question, something that I'm going to put a video out for tomorrow, Tin Man, if you're still listening. And also thank you to all the members as well for getting in their comments at the end there. I really enjoy that section. And we'll leave you tonight, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow and as well as on the weekend for the preseason friendly. Come on, you Spurs. The big Ange we trust. We never stop. See you, everyone.
Come on, you Spurs.